Hello friends, Namaste. My name is Chandrajit Mukherjee and today I'm going to continue the salient features classes from where we left. That is, we have already completed 6 features. Today we're going to complete the 7th feature. Yesterday was Sunday, so I did not post or uploaded any videos or any post, both in Instagram or in YouTube channel, that is in nutshell. Anyways, those who are new to my channel, please do subscribe to the channel, because here we will be completing the entire Indian polity, entire international relations in a very crisp manner, and we will complete each and every topic. We'll break each and every topic. We'll take the help of your books, and we will try to collect some current affairs concepts, current affairs issues, and we will merge that with the static portion, so that while preparing for our static portion, we will be discussing various current affairs issues. All right. So it will be a wholesome preparation for Indian polity, particularly the UPSC GS2. All right. So let's start. We're going to start with the 7th features, and the 7th feature of the Indian Constitution is that the Indian Constitution do have a single integrated judicial system and independent judiciary. Now see, those who have not seen my video, there's a link up there. Please do check out that link. There you will find all the previous 6 posts with respect to the salient features. Just go through it. Only then you will be able to understand this 7th feature. The Indian polity questions are very, very dynamic. They are interrelated. These days, UPSC is not or rather little interested in asking some very basic questions. They will be most likely trying to test your application skills. So please go through those 5 videos and then come to this video, which will be more beneficial for you. Because this 7th feature, which is integrated and an independent judiciary, you can only understand it when you will understand why there is a judicial supremacy and not parliamentary absolute sovereignty. So this is the 6th feature that we have discussed in our last class. Therefore, if you understand that, then you will understand this in a much better way. But those who have not seen the previous video, or rather the last video, I'll be touching that point so that I can make you understand today's lecture. All right. Integrated judiciary means that the entire nation, that is India as an entire nation, would have a single standard composition of the judiciary. Rather, let's take it in a scientific discussion. Let's take this a science discussion. Use a scientific example so that you can understand this clearly. DNA is a double-stranded structure, while RNA is a single-stranded structure. Right? The entire state, or an Indian constitution per se, there are 3. Normally, what we read in polity, or normally what we read in political science, that state is composed of 3 major organs. Right? So if you want to understand in a scientific way, in the DNA RNA structure wala thing, then you have to understand that Indian state, or other state, is composed of 3 units, 3 organs, 3 agencies, and this is a tri structure rather. When it comes to judiciary, it is the single stranded structure. That means in India you have one Supreme Court, then in other in the next level you will have all the high courts, and in third rank you will get the subordinate courts or lower courts. Point that I want to make here is that if you compare the independence of judiciary is something that we have taken, the essence of independence of judiciary, the power of judicial review, the essence of constitutionalism. These are the things that we have taken from the American Constitution. And in America, the judicial system of the judiciary is not single-stranded. You know, in America, you have a federal court, or the Supreme Court, federal court, wherein the federal court is been empowered to enforce only the federal laws, the central laws, whereas the state laws are being governed by the state courts. This is not what we have in the Indian Constitution. In India, Supreme Court can enforce central laws as well as state laws. A High Court can enforce central laws as well as state laws. So this is something that is very unique in the Indian Constitution, because in India, you have a right to appeal to another level. So if I bring this up in a simple nutshell, then I must say that the Indian Constitution and the judicial system, that is the integrated judiciary, is like a vertical allocations or vertical allocations of power. Vertical allocations of power, wherein you have at the apex, at the top, you have Supreme Court. Just below the Supreme Court, you have High Courts. In every state, almost, barring few exceptions, and there are certain subordinate courts wherein you will find district courts and other lower courts. So you see, it's a beautiful triangle if you can draw that. In the lower rung you have lower judiciary, in the next upper, just vertically above it, is the state high courts, and at the top there is the Supreme Court. And you can file appeal from the lower court to the Supreme Court. So you will see there's a vertical distribution, and each and everyone can apply central and state laws, which is not the case when you compare this system with the US judiciary. Because in US judiciary, the states do not, or rather state high courts are not empowered to ensure or apply the central laws, the federal laws. Whereas in India, this is not the case. Why we have done this? If this is a question, this is something that is written in the book. But Indian Constitution is following this integrated judicial system. But if I ask you why Indian Constitution is following this integrated judiciary, why it is following that? It is following mainly because of two reasons. As I mentioned earlier, if you have not seen my previous videos, you will not understand this in toto, rather in complete sense. You see, when we have started our discussion on salient features, I've told you that that Indian Federation is basically a coming together federation or a holding together federation. This was the question. I have said that Indian Constitution and its federation is a holding together federation. It is the central government which is holding the states. So see, if I distribute this power that each and every high court can even start their own supreme courts, or rather each and every high court are barred from applying the central laws, then technically what I'm doing is I'm giving, or I'm actually separating the two identities, that is central and states, completely. And this rigid distinction between central and state is not something that we follow in our federation. This second point is that the central laws, the distribution of power between center and state, that is in what we follow in India from Article 245 to 254. The entire distribution of legislative power is established in a way that even central government can make laws for the state governments. Say for example the concurrent list. Say for example the residuary powers. Those who have no idea about the concurrent list, or those who have no idea about the residuary powers, please wait for a little bit of time. We will come to these things when we will be you will be taking the legislative part per se. And those who are very much acquainted with these terms, I hope you will enjoy this video. So the central government is empowered to make state laws in certain situations. The central government are empowered to make laws under the residuary power under Article 248. And the central government are empowered to make laws, or rather overpower the state laws when it comes in conflict with certain issues that are mentioned in the concurrent list. That means if there are issues wherein the central government is making state laws, then where will be a rigid distribution of power in the judicial system can sustain? It cannot sustain in that sense. So there could be many other reasons, but these are the two primary reasons that why we follow the integrated judiciary. Second part, the Supreme Court of India is also, you can call it as a federal court, as a federal court of appeal. Right now, from here you'll have to find a link as to why it is independent, or why it is important to make the judiciary independent. So you see, I have one question for you. I have written this question for you on this particular topic, on this particular feature. Discuss the various features of the Constitution that ensures the independence of the judiciary. First, I'm not asking you about is it important that the judiciary should remain independent. No, I'm not asking this question. This is an affirmative question. I know that the independence of judiciary is an essential part. It is rather a basic feature of the Constitution. My question is how the Indian Constitution has ensured that the judiciary should remain independent. The first thing, we'll start off with why and then how. Why it is independent, what is the need of making this institution, the judiciary, as independent? Because the Supreme Court or the High Courts, they are the protectors of your fundamental rights. They're the protector of your fundamental rights. They're the guardian of the Constitution. Supreme Court is the guardian of the Constitution. So if I do not empower these supreme bodies, Supreme Court, High Court, if I do not empower these bodies to fight against the populism or the popular steps taken by the legislature or executive, then the essence of constitutionalism can get hampered. So to ensure that there has to be a check and balance, to ensure that there's a judicial check on the executive and the legislature, we have to make the independence of judiciary. We have to ensure the independence of judiciary. In that sense, what are the steps, or how we have ensured the independence of the judiciary? The first and foremost thing, the appointment of the judges are quite aloof from the interferences of the central government per se. Because the high judiciary, the appointment is through the collegium system, whereas the involvement of central government is very limited, or rather there is almost no interference. The second is that their tenure and this condition of service, these cannot be interfered. These has to remain. So the judges being sitting on the chair, they'll only have to give a judgment which is based on law. They don't have to be fearful about the tenure, about the service condition, because those are being taken care of by the Constitution itself. Those areas cannot be touched by the government. What is the fourth area? The fourth area as to how you have ensured the judicial independence is that the salaries or the allowances for the judges are charged from the Consolidated Fund of India. They are the charged money. So when something is under charged slab in the budget, or in the Consolidated Fund of India, those charged incomes, or those charged expenditure of the government, income is for the judges, those charged expenditures of the government, they are beyond the scrutiny of voting. They don't have to go through the voting per se. So in that sense, their salaries, their allowances are fixed. It can only change for their betterment, but it cannot change for the worse. So the service condition, the tenure, the salaries, allowances, these are taken care of by the Constitution itself. So the Constitution makers were very much aware of this notion of ensuring the judicial supremacy, because that will be something that will ensure the constitutionalism actually. Because that will ensure the unlimited majoritarian government and legislative actions. They can put a check on that. And if you want to ensure this balance, it can only be possible if you ensure the independence of the judiciary. All right. Apart from that, it's also written in the constitution that the steps taken by the judges, those areas, those discussions cannot be taken in the Parliament House. So you see, the constitution makers are quite aware of this fact. Finally, what I want to conclude is that even after the retirement of the judges cannot go on for practice in lower courts. So, for example, I being a judge of a high court, once I retire, I cannot practice in any high courts. I can only practice at max to Supreme Court, but not in high courts. The Supreme Court judges cannot practice in either of the courts. So the basic idea is that the constitution makers have ensured that the conflict of interest, the vested interests, should not come in a way of dispensing justice. And justice is basically what? It ensures that the government should remain in a limitation. There should be a limited government or limited governance. All right. So that's it for today. I hope you have understood this entire this feature. If you have any doubt, please do write in the comment section. I'll definitely reply, or I'll ensure that I'll reply that in our next video. Till then, thank you so much. Namaste.